Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session titled A High-Level Hope for Managing AI X Risk. Just to present our speaker, Ajeya is a senior advisor at Open Philanthropy, where she works on AI strategy and futurism. Ajeya has been at Open Phil for 9 years. Before this, she led Open Phil's program on technical AI safety, and before that, she worked in several major research projects in cost prio, housing, animal welfare, and AI forecasting. Ajeya is also a longtime EA. She co-founded the AI Berkeley student group over 10 years ago and gave a 2016 Intro to AI talk that's still used on CA's website. As a reminder, if you have any questions for Ajeya, you can submit them via the Swapcard app. I'll be selecting a mix of those questions and some prepared ones when we do the Q&A towards the end. We also have office hours where you'll be able to talk directly with the speaker following this session in the Empire Ballroom West. Please join me in welcoming Ajeya Katra.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Really appreciate you taking time away from your one-on-ones on a Sunday afternoon, one of the last sessions of the day. It's really flattering to see a full crowd here. Today, I'm going to try and quickly talk you through a high-level framework or plan or hope for managing existential risks from AI, that if you ever come to the Bay and talk to people working on AI safety, you'll sort of get the sense that this is implicit in their minds. If you read several less wrong posts about plans or grand strategy, you'll see something like this picture reflected there. And in fact, this is implicit in the strategies publicly written up by all three major frontier AI companies as well. So this is very much not my ideas. It's sort of something I'm trying to reflect an emerging consensus to you all. So with that said, let's dive in. Last month, Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Suarez published a book that distills arguments they've been making for almost 20 years that superhuman AI might lead to the extinction of the human race. They think will almost certainly lead to the extinction of the human race. These arguments are probably familiar to most of you in this audience, but to quickly summarize them, I would say, number one, superhuman AIs would be powerful enough to drive humanity extinct if they were motivated to do so. Number two, we do not have robust technical methods for ensuring that AI systems have goals that cause them to remain loyal to us. And number three, if AI systems develop unwanted goals because our methods for shaping their goals were insufficiently robust, then we might get in the way of them pursuing what they want to pursue. And just like we drove the dodo bird and the mammoth and a whole number of other species extinct, so too they might drive us extinct as they pursue whatever their ends were that were completely unintended by us, their designers. I have a number of disagreements and quibbles with the way the argument is put in this book, but I encourage everyone to read it. And the core of the argument that I just said to you right now is something I believe is extremely plausible and worrying and worth taking seriously. So for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to say, I agree with the thesis of this book that if anyone builds radically superhuman AI, everyone dies. Again, let's assume that for the purposes of this talk. I think you could have disagreements with this thesis, and I have many. But exactly how superhuman are we talking here? So if you read this book, and if you read Eliezer Yudkowsky's writings over the years, he is talking about an extreme degree of superintelligence. So he's talking about AI systems that are as much smarter than humans as humans are compared to mice or compared to ants. So if anyone builds this kind of radically superhuman AI, let's assume everyone dies. But what about if someone builds moderately superhuman AI? What about if someone builds an AI that's as much smarter than me as I am compared to a 4-year-old? That's quite a big intelligence gap still. Does everyone die? I think the argument gets weaker at this stage. So we might think if we accepted the previous case, that if anyone builds radically superhuman AI, everyone dies. If anyone builds moderately superhuman AI, and that moderately superhuman AI, for whatever reason, doesn't quickly build radically superhuman AI, maybe everyone probably dies. And what about if anyone builds barely superhuman AI? So AI that's as smart as your smartest friend and knowledgeable across all the human disciplines. Still superhuman. None of us would be able to do the feats that this AI could do. Would everyone die? And I'm going to argue that I would claim that even if you accepted the premise that if anyone builds God-like superhuman AI, everyone dies, you might wonder, maybe everyone dies, or maybe everyone survives. If anyone builds barely superhuman AI, and that barely superhuman AI doesn't quickly improve into a radical level of superhuman. So then you might wonder, what happens if anyone builds the next little increment of capability on top of the current trajectory of improvement? So we have GPT-5 today. What happens if anyone builds GPT 5.5? I would say most likely, probably everyone is fine. I think people actually will disagree in their probabilities here, because some people have a greater credence that GPT 5.5 could represent a significant leap in intelligence. We actually haven't had that many data points. We haven't had that many years of incremental improvement in general AI capabilities. But I would guess most people in this room think above 90%, above 95%, that everyone is probably fine if anyone builds GPT 5.5, and it stops right there. Just raise your hand, I guess, if you think we're probably fine if we build GPT 5.5. Yeah. So in graphical form, this argument that I kind of went through, AI capabilities have been improving over the last several years, over the last 10-ish years, at a fast but steady-ish clip. We've been getting increasingly more capable chatbots, increasingly more capable agents every year. They do better at the tests we throw at them. We invent new tests, and they do kind of fine at those tests. And then the year after that, they do really well at those tests from last year, and we invent new tests. And so things have been proceeding at a pace like this. And by assumption for the purposes of this talk, there exists some capability level that we could reach, at which point the AIs would have the desire to and the ability to kill us all, and would do so. So a number of people who take this picture of the world seriously propose shutting down AI development. This is Miri proposes, Eliezer and Nate in their book propose an international treaty that could accomplish this. Groups like Pause AI and Stop AI. Pause AI had an event, a satellite event surrounding this conference yesterday, propose stopping AI development. Now, I think this plan has a number of problems. One problem is that it's not clear what you do after you shut it down now. How long can you keep it shut down? What do you do with that time? How do you make the situation stable? Because even if you manage to shut it down for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you have to imagine that any sort of regime that set this up would eventually crumble or face instability, and then AI progress would, resume again, and we would be left in this same position or potentially a worse position, because there might have been overhang, there might have been resources built up that could quickly be deployed to making AI progress even faster than it's being made now. Another problem with this plan is that people are not on the same page as the people most concerned with X risk from AI about the level of danger we face and the point in time at which we face the danger. So a lot of people, given that GPT 5.5 would most likely be fine, and would bring a lot of economic benefits and social benefits, are not on board with shutting things all down right now. A number of those people might say, well, why not shut it down later? Why not keep going? Allow the AI companies to keep making money, keep reaping the social benefits, the gains from increasingly more useful AI systems that are helpful pieces of technology, and stop short of the point where AI would kill us all. After all, at that point, we might have much greater evidence about whether or not they'll kill us all, if you don't accept the premise already. And you might think that at this point in time, there would be much more political will that there isn't right here. Of course, there's problems with this plan too. I think there is still the problem of what then. Suppose we manage to shut things down here. What do we do then? Do we keep things shut down forever? What would it take? What kind of enforcement regime would it take to keep things shut down forever? And how do we ever get to the point where we are robust to the possibility of progress resuming? But then it also has another problem that this first plan doesn't have, which is we may not exactly know where this horizontal line is. So from our perspective right now, even if out there in reality there's some point in capability space where the AI goes from not killing us all to killing us all, we won't know exactly where that is. We haven't begun to do the kind of research and measurement and scientific consensus building that would let us feel confident. Even that it's not going to be GPT 5.5. Maybe it is actually down here, and we're unlucky. And in 6 months, someone will build the kind of AI system that would kill us all. But certainly, as you go further and further and further, it becomes more and more and more likely that we're about to hit this threshold. But even if we assume that we have a firm sense of what capability level exactly would lead to AI systems killing us all, we have another problem with this plan, which is that at some point earlier than the point where AI systems would kill us all, they might get good enough to automate and radically accelerate the process of doing further AI R&D. Which means that if we're picturing ticking up this sort of steady curve and stopping over here, then we might suddenly find ourselves faced with a situation where we hit this orange threshold, which is the threshold at which AI automates AI R&D, and things might go much faster. So we might find an intelligence explosion or FOOM on our hands. And blow through this threshold a lot earlier in time than we're planning for, which is another reason why people are kind of interested in stopping now. So how do we navigate this situation? First of all, I think it's just important to acknowledge that the decision-making about whether to slow down and when to slow down is intrinsically tied up with your model of the situation, your model of how fast AI capabilities are increasing, and your probability distribution over when they might hit certain critical thresholds that cause things to go much faster or cause AIs to want to kill us all or be able to kill us all. And in my uncertainty on this question, I have a lot of sympathy for people who want to pause right now down here in the pale yellow part of the picture I drew. But I also have a lot of sympathy for people who are really far from being willing to stop right now and think that we need far more evidence before we enforce such a drastic action upon the world. And my sort of strategy going through this space is largely to try to help people understand why they disagree and understand how they can characterize where these lines might be and characterize how fast this line might be going, and generally trying to get people to the point where they have the information and the arguments they can use to try and narrow down a range of compromises here. So, if you're someone who thinks we should pause or stop now, I don't think that's necessarily unreasonable, although that's not where I'm at, and it's really not where a lot of other people are at who are kind of more skeptical of this whole picture than me. So what's a way we can navigate this? If we think it is not the right call, all things considered, to stop right now, and I don't think it's the right call, all things considered, to stop right now. One important piece of the puzzle, in my opinion, is that maybe the AIs themselves can help a lot with the task of navigating this question that we find ourselves with, threading this needle, and in particular there might come a point when AIs are capable enough that they can automate and radically accelerate the process of reducing P-doom from future generations of AIs. So this is a picture that, vibes-wise, I kind of believe that sometime shortly after the point where AIs are capable enough of automating and radically accelerating the process of AI R&D. I believe they're likely to become capable of accelerating and automating the process of doing things like AI safety research, AI policy development, forecasting, strategy on this whole picture, and things like that. So if you buy this picture, and not everyone does, and we can get into that in the Q&A, then a strategy that seems pretty appealing is to try and really track when we're getting to this orange line and start slowing down without fully stopping right around that point, and then start slowing down further at the point when you reach AIs that are capable of automating protection. And then hang out in that zone for a while, using these AI systems to automate a whole bunch of different activities that are helpful for managing and handling the potential for doom from even more powerful AI systems. And here I've drawn this doom line going upward because I think that one of the things these AI systems can automate is the process of improving society's defenses and improving the degree to which we can control and check and monitor AI systems. And that automation could increase the threshold of capability that it would take for AI systems to successfully kill us all. And there's a question of how long we can or will hang out in this zone, and that's something we can get into in the Q&A as well. And it'll depend on basically how much coordination the world has at this stage, which will in turn depend on how much agreement there is and collective understanding there is on this whole picture, as well as a bunch of other things. And maybe at some point, we either run out of time or we feel confident enough that we hand off control to AI systems and we allow progress to progress at closer to its natural pace again. So in the good case, this is because we've done enough alignment work and built up enough of a science of AI motivations that we feel confident that even though we're allowing AI systems to become capable enough to overwhelm our defenses, that they in fact won't choose to harm humans. But there are also sort of less happy circumstances under which we could end up handing off control. For example, if one coalition is trying to pull off this plan, but there's a different coalition that isn't on board with that plan, the first coalition that is in the lead may choose to hand off control and allow things to move faster when the lagging coalition is about to catch up, is a way that this could go down. But this is the broad picture that I think is in the minds of a lot of people doing AI safety research and sort of grand strategy research in AI safety nonprofits in the Bay Area, in AI companies, on Less Wrong, and so on. And I think having this picture in mind has been really fruitful for me as I think about how my work fits into the story of what I'm hoping the world manages to achieve and pull off. Is this going to work? I think, well, maybe. And we can get into sort of debates around this plan in the Q&A. But very roughly speaking, a few factors that I think would make this more or less likely to work is how tightly we can bound all these lines that I've drawn. How well do we know exactly what the capability level is now and how fast we've been going in the recent past and what capability level exactly would lead to FOOM and how extreme would the FOOM be exactly and what capability level would lead to the ability to automate protection and whether it actually is slightly above FOOM or whether it's below or whether it's in fact above doom, which would be a bad scenario to be in, where the doom capability level is at, and just generally I think there's a lot that can be done to quantify all the parameters I've drawn here in the context of other kinds of forecasting you might do. I think a extremely strong collective understanding of what actually might happen and the consequences of decisions to slow by different amounts at different points in time, I think is an important factor helping to determine if this goes well. Other important factors are just the degree of cooperation there is among different developers of the technology, the technological means to verify and enforce agreements between different parties to do something of this shape, and the actual amount of AI labor and quality of AI labor that we might have available at this stage. And I think these are all parameters that we can kind of both study and affect. And I think if you're kind of like thinking of yourself as working on AI safety or policy with the goal of preventing AI takeover, having this picture in mind can be helpful. So with that, we can go to questions.
So just to begin with, what do you think are like the most likely reasons why this might not be what ends up happening?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two big categories of reasons. One is that it's just really not as predictable as I've made it seem in these pictures, like when we hit certain capability thresholds. So like if you think that the next model generation just like might be the one that hits some like core of intelligence, and then from there the AI system can improve itself in a matter of like weeks or days to like radical superhuman AI, we might not even know this is happening before it's too late. And then I think another category of ways that this could fail is that AI systems might be differentially much, much worse at protection activities, and we might be like unable to elicit good AI safety research from them. So even if they're not powerful enough yet to like actually pose a threat to human civilization, for some combination of them not being good at it and not being willing to do it, we might not be able to elicit very much like helpful work out of them before we run out of time.
Right. So let's assume we can indeed elicit those capabilities. Like one implication of your model is that AI is going to be a big part of our jobs before something, or like before big risk can actually manifest. How do you think it would be to live through that stage?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is something that I've been thinking about a lot and trying to picture it. One thing that really is striking to me is that AI systems might be making both protection activities and AI R&D activities go way, way faster, while humans are still relevant in some important senses. So like if they might be like better at shorter tasks, or they might be better at tasks that have much better feedback loops. And it might still be the case that humans add a lot of value by managing these systems. You know, I imagine that like one way things could go is that we're all looking at like, you know, 6 different monitors at once, and like we're orchestrating hundreds of AI agents, and they're like coming back to us in seconds or minutes with like vast amounts of work that would have taken us hours to do, and we have like other AI systems review the work and like flag things that might be wrong. We're sort of all like acting as if we're the CEOs of like sort of medium-sized organizations that are sped up really fast and have like weird like savant employees, which I think could be, we could spend like a year or two in that world, which is a very different feeling from like just one day you get superhuman AI.
Right. So taking questions from the audience, Alex asks, how could you envision stopping a company or actor from unilaterally increasing capabilities while everyone else pauses? I guess this is only, you know, actually relevant to the timelines where we do indeed are able to pause, but...
So how do I envision stopping a lagging actor?
Yeah.
I think it really depends on like what actor you're talking about and like what actor you're imagining doing the stopping, right? So domestically within a particular country, you can imagine laws, regulations that say that AI companies need to have like meet certain safety standards before increasing their capability levels to certain thresholds. You can imagine those being enforced normally as laws are enforced. And you can imagine AI is helping a lot with this enforcement in various ways, just doing a lot of the monitoring labor and a lot of the labor like flagging if something seems off. Internationally, it's harder, and it's always been harder, and I imagine there would be some amount of like actual like espionage and sabotage, right. And there's also going to be some amount of negotiation, and I don't think I have a strong picture of really how either of those would go, and they seem like big challenges.
So yeah, we don't have much time. Maybe I can get like 30-second answer to the second audience questions, which is, why is your best guess that the protection automation threshold is above the capability automation threshold?
I think it's basically because it seems like AI companies are trying way harder to automate AI R&D than to automate anything else. And also, AI R&D has much better feedback loops and much more training data than other types of things like policy research.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so sadly, that's all we have time for. For those that want to continue this conversation, you can talk to Ajeya at the office hours that are starting right now in Empire Ballroom West. And yeah, thanks for attending, and obviously thanks for the speaker for such a great talk.
Thank you.